اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم كلا إن الإنسان ليطغى أن رآه استغنى إن إلى ربك الرجعى أرأيت الذي ينهى عبدا إذا صلى أرأيت إن كان على الهدى أو أمر بالتقوى أرأيت إن كذب وتولى ألم يعلم بأن الله يرى كلا لئن لم ينته لنسفعا بالناصية ناصية كاذبة خاطئة فليدع ناديه سندع الزبانية كلا لا تطعه واسجد واقترب.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Every age presents its own vice, and sometimes it comes with its own counter-balancing acts that checks that vice and puts it into place. What we're facing today, not just as a nation, but the entire global village is having a problem that has to do with indiscipline. It cuts across every fabric of our society, in our homes, mosques, churches, everything, everywhere. It has become a problem that must be discussed, and indeed the discussion is ongoing. Like they say, no man or woman has achieved an effective personality who is not self-disciplined. Such discipline must not be an end in itself, but must be directed to the development of resolute Muslim character. Hello, good morning and welcome to Iqra. On this show today, the issue of indiscipline is going to be truly dissected, examined and discussed effectively. But before we do that, take a look at this comprehensive tip.
Lives today. We live in an era where values of morality have broken down and crimes are committed by our own Muslim brothers and sisters. Armed robbery is on the increase, while prostitution, internet fraud or sakawa, illiteracy, unemployment or occultism are all growing strong in our Zungu communities. Like a canker or cancer is eating into the vitals of our Muslim society. There's indiscipline in our our schools, amongst our imams, and indiscipline everywhere in our Muslim communities. Ask the parents, and most of them will tell you their children no longer listen to them nor submit to any discipline. Ask the school teachers, and they will tell you the same sad tale. Ask the husbands, and they complain that their wives do not listen to them. Ask the employers, and they will be unanimous that today's laborers or employees usually take the law into their own hands and do not take any notice of even the union bosses unless they dance to their tunes. The major causes of this moral decline are the numerous acts of indiscipline that have engulfed almost every sphere of our lives. Why is there such widespread indiscipline in the world today? And why has the unparalleled advance made by man in the field of education, science, technology, material welfare, etc. failed to induce discipline in him? The Holy Quran made it clear in chapter 4:5-9, which appeals to reason and good sense, that to obey Allah and the Messenger and those in authority from among you. Are we as Muslims practicing these teachings?
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. Indeed, the question still stands. Are we as Muslims observing the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad as far as the lessons of discipline are concerned? I have in the studio with me a gentleman and a lady, or they say a lady and a gentleman, but we say ladies first. I'm going to have to start with Sister Wedad Apenteng Quaye. She works with the European Union, a wonderful sister who has been on this show a couple of times. Wedad, you're welcome.
Thank you.
And Mumuni Ibrahim, aka IB. He has a consultancy firm, I would say, Sesame Street Consultancy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You've been here before. You deal as a consultant in education. You deal a lot of times with students, pupils, and students. Sometimes at the tertiary level. You'll be answering most of the questions here today, I believe. And we would like to thank you, viewers, for sending in your comments, your views, and your contributions via Facebook. And then it will be read live on air as a part of this show here today. I have loads of comments here to read on this show here today. Brother Ivy, indiscipline. When we say indiscipline, what exactly are we looking at as far as definitions?
When we talk about indiscipline, but before I go to that, I'd like to correct something briefly.
Okay.
I don't own the consultancy firm.
Okay.
I consult for Sesame Street, based in New York.
Okay.
But then I consult for them in Ghana here.
Thank you very much for the correction.
Thanks so much. And discipline, basically from a layman's understanding, we could relate it to non-conformity to the norms and values of society, especially when it's deliberate. Then we say you are an indisciplined person, and the act is then described as indiscipline.
Okay. We as Muslims are supposed to adhere to certain norms, certain values, certain ethical teachings. The Quran says, the hadith of Prophet Muhammad says, وَإِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. Certainly I have been sent forth to perfect the wonderful codes of ethics and morality of human values. And this is, you can't get any, there's no example that you would need to set again if he puts it this way. And all his life has been a true teaching, a true example, and that's why the Quran says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. In the personality of Prophet Muhammad, you have a wonderful example to emulate. Now, as Muslims, what is the problem?
This is a very difficult question. It looks very simple, but quite complicated. I think one of the problems is an issue of ignorance. It is one thing being a Muslim, it's another thing knowing why you are a Muslim and how to practice Islam as a deen. Many are born into the religion but have not taken pain to understand what Islam is all about. And so ignorance serves as the foundation of all the other challenges that we shall be building on. That I see as a cardinal problem, or perhaps let's say challenge, because it affords us the opportunity to look out for some solutions. So ignorance is one thing.
Okay.
Two, our heart desires as against the basic principles that Islam has laid for us.
That's right.
It's another key issue that is working against us. And until we turn and follow the right path, then naturally we'll be having some of these teaching problems in our livelihoods.
Okay, thank you very much, Sister Wedad. I can see you nodding and in response to what Brother Ivy is saying, I believe you have something to say in this direction.
Yes, as he said, ignorance. I was very happy that he mentioned ignorance, because most of us are very ignorant about Islam, but we proclaim to be Muslims.
That's right.
And the word Islam itself is derived from, the simple meaning is peace. And in order to have peace with each other, you need to be disciplined.
That's right.
Islam as a religion translates as submitting to the wills of the Creator. And so the Creator has given us his set rules in order to be able to stay with each other amicably. And if we are able to follow these rules, which of course is discipline ourselves, we are going to have a very good coexistence with each other. And so ignorance is a very big part. And also, as I said, our inability to control our heart desires. That is also a very, very, very challenging part.
Wow. You can't discuss, if you want to discuss indiscipline comprehensively, you need to look at the causes of indiscipline. You want to say, you started off nicely when you said education and then following our heart desires. But I want us to bring it down to the layman's understanding. The ordinary person watching this show this morning who lives in Nima, Mamobi, Newtown, who sometimes would not reflect carefully over these two issues, education and perhaps pursuing our heart's desires. It has to start from somewhere. The institutions, do they have anything, or where are they at fault? When I say institutions, I'm looking at the parents, schools, society, these are all institutions. Where do you see it starting from?
I think I'll categorize into two main areas. Some of the problems are situational, others are structural within our systems. Structurally, if we look at our home systems, one of the key problems there is broken homes through separations, divorce. All these could be classified under broken homes.
That's right.
Where parents are living apart and the child is torn in between. And so there's an element of indecision. That's the child picks one thing from the mother and then another thing from the father.
Right.
In between the two, the child has another world that he or she relates to. And this is where the key problem comes. Especially in our part of the world, when there's separation or divorce, most of the men tend to relegate their responsibilities and leave everything to the women to take up. But the upbringing of a child is the responsibility of both parents, not a single parent. It does become a big challenge for the mother to bear the wrath of bringing up maybe 3 boys, 2 girls in this part of our world. So it comes with its own problems. That is when they begin to associate with peers. This is where they tend to learn a lot of things, undesirable things within our society, and gradually creeping into elements of indiscipline. So broken homes is one key thing. And this is not far-fetched from our Muslim communities.
Absolutely.
Even when we live with our wives, it could be described as a broken home. The father doesn't call the wife by name, but calls her Zachary's mother. By extension, it has its own implications. And so the way we even live with our wives, our mothers, is a key problem.
That's right. We spend time, energy, going through painstaking stuff to grab education, to become well enlightened, to get the right jobs, make the right money, live in big homes, drive beautiful cars. But perhaps we're forgetting something when it comes to bringing up our kids properly. Do we take time to learn quality parenting, for instance? I know in the past our grandparents were taught, they grew up naturally becoming good parents. But today, what seems to be the problem, Sister Wedad?
The problem these days is we have shifted our interest into material things.
Okay.
When you see parents talking to their children, what do you want to be in future? The child will say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be so and so. He said, yes, you have to grow up and get plenty money and do this and that. So our focus now is on materialism, money, cars, as you said, big homes. Previously, when these things were not too much focused on, there was quality of humanness.
Absolutely.
But these days, because we have, even from the beginning, you let your child know that when you grow up, you have to grow up and get plenty money and come and take care of me. So whatever the child is going to do to get that plenty money to come and take care of you is what the child is going to do. And also, to add up to the home systems, you find a mother, a single parent, sometimes even when they are not single parents, when the father hurts the mother or when there's some slight confusion in the house, because we lack counseling.
That's right.
We cannot counsel ourselves, and we also don't have counseling systems in place. So when you get angry, you just exert your anger on the children. So your child offends you and you say, your head like your father's head. You just make things too obvious to the child that there's a problem.
That's
and
right.
When the child is traumatized in these kind of situations, he or she finds comfort amongst peers. And
children, they say that they don't listen, or they don't listen to what we say.
They do what we do.
They're very good. They look at what we do and they practice. Let me take this comment coming in from this is coming from Al Hassan Abdullah. He says, thanks for this topic. Indiscipline is on the increase because some of our leaders, parents, and even the teachers do not set good examples for the young ones to follow. They render lip service of good behavior to the young ones and practice the opposite. They openly boast of their indisciplined acts when they were young in the presence of these innocent young ones. May Allah save us. I had to read this when you were making that serious comment.
Yes.
Parents hurling insults at one another, which makes it a lot dangerous for kids to emulate. Isa Ahmed Muhammad says, the Imam think he has the knowledge and the know-how and so he looks down on the Jama'at also. The Imam is too proud, and what and he thinks it's the same thing that runs throughout our entire institutions in the homes: arrogance, pride, and all that. Let me take the last one before I go to my first break. Baba Al-Hassan said, with our Imams, I think it is because they don't get something in the form of wage or salary, and also have children and wives. And no one takes care of all of these. So this, I think, is some extent frustrates them, which leads to indiscipline. We will be looking at the roles that our leaders will have to play, the imams, the chiefs, ceremonial as they may be, the magajiyas and all that. In the past, these were strong institutions giving directives to young ones growing up. But today, something serious is wrong somewhere, and someone has got to fix it. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Maybe it's known for some reasons, but I wouldn't mention on this show here today. But before I progress with my question, let me read these interesting comments. Sultan Abu Ishaq Osman says, I think it is the love of money that makes our leaders hide the truth from those who should be told. May Allah guide us. It is very important. Abdul Samad Muaz says, this is a very good topic to discuss because the Prophet talked much about it. That is indiscipline. Latif says, they say charity begins at home. So, as in discipline, so must indiscipline. So indiscipline also begins at home. You are not far from right, my brother Latif Abdullah. Let me go to brother IB. In the past, when we were very little, perhaps we were not even born in those good, excellent paths that some people lived, where life was so obedient to itself. You know, obedience had meaning, and discipline as a value was properly understood. Parents had time for their kids. We could grow in the homes of our grandparents. Some of us, for instance, we enjoyed growing up under the care of our grandparents because the quality of life there was superb. You know, are we missing the past, Ivy?
Exactly. I think we need to look at our cultural tapestry that will help us into the future. Those very good old days were when extended family was so much appreciated. And therefore, a child could be asked to go and live with the uncle, the auntie, or the grandma, where you learn some very good values and positive attitudes within your society. But later in life, we tend to look at the Western world, where they value the nuclear system of family at the expense of the extended family.
Right.
But today I can tell people confidently that even within the European world, they are gradually trying to see how best they can work with the extended family system. That has great values. Remember, there's this very simple adage, but very philosophical, that two heads are always better than one. The extended family naturally would have a lot more wisdom to give to the up-and-coming ones compared to the nuclear family, where mom and dad are always on the search for money to help the family. So economically, they are depriving their children the best life that they would have given to them. But within the extended family, you have the grandmother, the uncle, the aunties, who play a supportive role in helping mold the moral uprightness of their children and the natural value system of the society that we give them. Those things are missing.
We've accepted cultures and practices that are seriously not ours, to the detriment of our own. And so this substitution, you know, I don't see, if you ask me, how good the European values and ethics are better, how good or better they are, you know, if you wanted to measure up to our own cultures and practices. I don't know what is there in these values that people love so much. You know, I want somebody to help me.
Before my sister comes in, we also need to look at the educational system. What type of education is provided to the Ghanaian child today? That is the Western education. What type of research is our researchers embarking on? Are they reinventing the wheel, or they are copying exactly what the Europeans are doing? This is where we need to look at it. You have a Ghanaian child who thinks in a Ghanaian way, as I may describe, in the classroom, and the teacher thinks that child is wrong. So the teacher is killing the creativity of that particular child. The teacher wants the child to think like an European rather than a Ghanaian, with a Ghanaian way of doing things, so we can build our own system. how did Japan come up to this level today? The Chinese, most of the Asian giants. It's because they allow their people to think in the Asian way.
Absolutely.
But in our part of the world, it's not so. Even when you're writing a thesis, research or anything, they want you to think like the European. Your examples are cited from the European. You are compelled to cite European writers rather than African and Ghanaian writers. So these same people come back to become the parents who bring forth children and train them, so they train them the European way. How many of us speak our Ghanaian languages with our children at home? How many of us sit our little ones around to tell them the very good old stories where they can extract moral lessons from? Those things are there. Why wouldn't we be confronted with and disciplined in our system?
This is a serious comment IB is making. The Quran in its wisdom says, certainly I created you from a single male and female and made you into tribes and nations. Emphasis tribes and nations, that you may know each other. This is very important. The reason why you are Ghanaian is very important to God. The reason why you are African is also important to God, as your Islamness or your Christian whatever is also important to God. All these things are as important to God as you want to think they are. Fuseni Mbanza Alasan says, one part of it is on poor parenting, technology and modernity. Parents will not execute their responsibilities, negative usage of technology and modern trends. Fuseni, you have it right. Sister with that.
No.
Now, the sum of the causes of indiscipline, they say, is poor parenting. And in Muslims, we believe that the mother is the first institution that the child comes across. You grew up nicely. I know you somehow, not too much, but you grew up nicely. I know your father, he's a good man. He brought you up nicely. What are we doing wrong today as far as bringing up our children?
We are doing so many things wrong. And it all goes down to self-actualization. You see, you need to encourage yourself and let yourself remember some things that were done to you, which were right and which were wrong. When I was 10 years old, I don't know if my father remembers, but on my 10th birthday, he bought me a book. It was poetry by an African writer. And he told me that I am fortunate to have come into an extended family because I will be able to learn from them. And so I should start looking beyond my two sisters, beyond my brothers. I should look to my cousins, my uncles and aunties, and learn every good thing I admire about everyone. And it really helped me. But these days you find parents who rather teach their children, especially men, he rather teach the child how to woo women. You find mothers who will teach their daughters how to dress provocatively because it's competition in the neighborhood. The fact that the Quran tells us that your mother and your father are next to God means that there's a very huge responsibility on parenthood. And so if you want your children to look up to you as a good parent, you cannot be like God, but you can follow the rules of God, and then you find yourself doing the right thing. But since we have shifted our priorities, and we are now looking at flat TVs, we are looking at, we are competing in the cars we drive, we are competing in the type of food. Even when you are eating Ghanaian food, you are said to be primitive. You need to be having check. Before you are considered amongst the class. I work in an environment where if you don't take alcohol, you are considered primitive. But because of the way I carry myself and how I do my things, there are people who now want to learn to stay away from alcohol because my happiness level is always at 100 degrees. So whether I take some or not, I'm always good to go. So it really goes down to ourselves.
You are always divinely intoxicated.
Yes, so sure. Even if I take one sachet of water and I feel like I'm intoxicated, I am.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty soon we'll be having a talk with Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Salam all the way from Kumasi. He's an Islamic scholar. He'll be joining us us via the telephone. But before we get to him, let me read a few comments here, and then we'll get to him. I will be tackling leadership. I said we'll be coming to the leaders. There's a comment here that says, Hawa Hussein. She says, good topic. The cause of this is one, education, and the lack of courage to call a spade a spade. Right. And we should all contribute our quota to educate this completely. Yusuf Rice says, I think one of the causes of this in society is arrogance, no respect for one another, and also we follow our feelings instead of the following of the Holy Book and Sunnah. Adiza Khalid says, some indiscipline in schools come from the teachers themselves. Maybe.
That's true.
Don Baba says, I think the cause of indiscipline in our society is because we choose our heart desire first, then we follow the Quranic teachings. And he thinks it starts with our parents and our imams too as well. We'll be tackling sometimes the cowardly nature of our leadership and how they feel to call a spade a spade. And when you become too bold to mention it and say it as it is, you are labeled, you are tagged. But first and foremost, let me speak with Sheikh Muhammad Abdul Salam from Kumasi. Imam, salam alaikum. I'll be speaking with you as a colleague Imam. An Imam is supposed to be upright, disciplined, and straightforward, spiritually, physically, all round. Do we have indisciplined Imams in our societies?
No, I don't want to say that we have an indisciplined imam, but sometimes we have imams who don't understand the teaching very well and do things otherwise. But I'm not sure there is an indisciplined imam. Whenever I say an imam does something otherwise, it means he may not understand the teaching of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because the Holy Prophet, Muslims are asked to emulate the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But some of the imams forgo the emulation of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and emulate other people. So those imams are doing some indisciplinary things, but I don't want to say that they are indisciplined imams.
Okay. My follow-up question: to emulate the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life is a tedious job. Trust me, it's sometimes impossible, because he says it himself, that which I have instructed you to do it to the best of your ability. Having said that, the mosques and the pulpits, are we using it effectively to bring about a change that we so desire?
Yes, that is what I was saying. The Holy Prophet during his days had to train Muslims. After preaching to them, telling them what they are supposed to do, he practiced it and for them to emulate. But these days, most of them are not. Imams only preach. They don't do what they preach. Sometimes they practice otherwise. That is why I would say that maybe they are not doing what they are supposed to do. That is the result of our indiscipline in our communities.
Okay. Now, in your own evaluations of the mosque system and the social breakdown that we have as Muslims in our communities, what do you think we should be doing right to fix the wrong that is going on?
Okay, what I think we should be doing right is, first of all, in our various houses, parents have to take their responsibility to train their children in accordance with the teaching of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that should not go contrary to what is being taught in schools. Sometimes, parents will be teaching their children in the house something which is Islamic, but when the children go to school, they are taught something which is against what the children heard from their parents. And sometimes Islam is taught in school, and the otherwise is practiced in the house. I think that is what we have to look at, so that there should be a kind of harmony between what is taught in school and what is the training in the houses. And secondly, the imams too should know how to train or to educate parents how to train their children in the house. Most Muslims don't know how to train their children in the house. Excuse me to say that some parents don't train their children. They don't educate them. They tame them. They leave them to do whatever they like. And most of in the north, those children do what they see their peers doing outside, which may go contrary to the teaching of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
We